First to my next guest, Robert Putnam. He made the case with his book, Bowling Alone, back in 2000, that the decline of civic engagement in America would have dire consequences. Now he's taking it a step further, examining widening economic inequality, what it means for our children, with his latest terrific book, Our Kids, The American Dream in Crisis. Bob Putnam, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
So you make the case incredibly powerfully that this gaping hole, this widening inequality, this caste system essentially, is doing unbelievable damage to our children. Give us some examples, including ones that are not so obvious to people.
Well, the bigger picture, of course, is the growing income gap and the growing segregation. That's equally important.
Income segregation.
Income segregation in America. What we're trying to do in the book is say, well, what are the effects on kids? And they're powerful effects.
Like what?
Well, like a growing gap in test scores, but also a growing gap in access to extracurricular activities, a growing gap in how much time parents spend reading to their kids, a growing gap in the degree to which they know their neighbors or connected with their neighbors. In every respect, rich kids now have more support than ever before. And that's my grandchildren, so I don't think it's evil, but poor kids, in the same years, all of those measures are going down. It's leading us toward a caste system.
And that means what in their lives?
Well, it means they're starting off way behind the eight ball. They're starting off without stable, caring adults in their lives. Their families, as you know, their families are in turmoil. They can't trust their neighbors because they're increasingly concentrated in dangerous neighborhoods. They can't trust their churches because they're no longer at church. They can't trust their coaches because they're no longer playing sports. They are alone, and that means they just lack savvy just to get through life.
Part of your cure is that when we use the term our kids, it can't just mean the people who grow up in our house, but our kids have to be all kids. What's the manifestation of that? What does that mean? Does that mean more affordable childcare? Does it mean affordable community colleges? What's the manifestation of it?
Oh, there are a lot of different things we can do.
Like what?
Like early childhood education. Boston has one of the best early childhood education programs in America, but they're cutting funding for it.
School budget this weekend.
And that's nuts. I mean, that's a program that we know will work. It's shown in Boston that will work. So cutting funding on it doesn't make sense. Having pay to play for extracurricular activities is nuts. It makes poor kids opt out of opportunities to learn soft skills. You know, what you do, playing basketball or band or chorus.
Because they can't afford those opportunities.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let me try another one by you that I just read about today. You work at a place that has the largest endowment of any university in the country. Number 2 is Yale. The legislature, I don't know if you know about this, in Connecticut is contemplating a bill that would tax the endowment of Yale University if they don't provide greater access to low-income kids. That should fit your prescription.
You're going to get me in trouble with
You're tenured, aren't you? So, I mean, but isn't that exactly the kind of thing you're talking about?
Well, you know, it shows up in college admissions and in college, and including Harvard. Of course it does. But to focus only on college as the cause of this increasing gap is to try to understand the marathon by looking at the last 150 yards. All these earlier disadvantages are really important. Of course, we should do a lot more at Harvard, not only to bring kids in, but from non-traditional backgrounds, but get them through. That's where the big drop-off is.
You know, but the thesis with which I am in complete agreement about how we have to embrace everybody's kids, I see the opposite. We were talking about this last night. When a kid dies in Department of Children and Families custody in the state, everybody in the state wrings their hands. A couple of days later, they start to forget. And then a couple of days later, the sense you get, and it's anecdotal, well, it's their kids. I mean, it's those people. It's not us. So how do you bridge that gap between, especially when you're feeling economic stress? It's not evil to say, I got to worry about myself first before I worry about them.
Yeah, but this is not just about charity. It is, of course, about our responsibility for other people. But the best economic estimate is the cost to us of not investing in poor kids is about $5 trillion over the lifetime of those kids. Put it a different way. It's not a choice between how well my grandchildren do and how well these kids do. My grandchildren will be living in a poorer society, I mean economically poorer society, if we don't help those kids, because those kids are, many of them, really smart, and we're not letting them into the game.
I'm going to try to make a link that you're probably going to leave the studio on, but I'm going to try to do it anyway. So we learn here in greater depth than we knew to begin with how the advantages that rich kids have and how long-term and damaging that impact can be on poor kids. Let's tie that to one of my favorite books of all time, which you happen to have written, Bowling Alone. The whole notion that the social infrastructure is breaking down for people, and people are literally and figuratively bowling alone. And I would say it leads to this.
We won the evangelicals. We won with young. We won with old. We won with highly educated. We won with poorly educated. I love the poorly educated.
Now, I'm not saying that Donald Trump has the prescription for the cure, but those words, to me, are evidence that he understands at least exactly what you're talking about. The anger,
yes.
the disenfranchisement,
yes.
the bowling alone. That's
yes.
what he's doing, isn't
You're absolutely right. I didn't know you were going to ask me that question, but I came prepared anyhow, because what I wrote in this book a year before anybody had heard of Trump was, under severe economic international pressures, that inert mass, these people who are just out of the society, might prove suddenly highly volatile and open to manipulation by anti-democratic demagogues at the ideological extremes. I think that's what's happening.
Are you an optimistic kind of character? I am. Yeah, so give me an example or two. Give the people at home an example or two to suggest that the issues you focus on, we should have hope about.
Because we've been here before, Jim. America has previously been in exactly the situation of great economic disparities, great social segregation, great gaps between rich and poor, high rates of immigration. I'm talking about the end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century, around 1890, 1910. Great political corruption, sense that the political parties were not responding to the problems. Sound familiar? Since the public philosophy was social Darwinism. Social Darwinism said basically America would be better off if everyone's just going to be selfish. And then in about 10 or 15 years, we began to fix the problem. We recognized the problem with books like How the Other Half Lives. And then in ordinary cities, not from Harvard and not from Washington, but in ordinary cities across America, we took reforms that actually did make a difference. So we've been here before. We can do this. This is not becoming Sweden. This is becoming America.
I feel a little better. Bob Putnam, great
Thanks.
to see you.
Thanks,
Huge
Jim.
contributions as always.
Thanks.